It is a good morning again in Kampala. It has been a light drizzle this morning in some parts, apparently. Some parts are so dry. You know, Kampala rain is so funny. It's one point you come from your house when it is raining, then you cross in the neighborhood and you find it is very dry and you have to dust your shoes. But it is a very good morning in Kampala and we have had a nice drizzle in some parts of Kampala. We welcome you again back to the Pan-African Friday. You viewer, wherever you are viewing us from the comfort of your sitting room, your car, your computer, on any of the platforms that you are following us, and we are grateful and thankful that you have been following us, at least you are being with us for the next 1 hour or two or so. Now, in the studio today with the usual people and who will be talking to you about the issues that concern us, especially the people of this continent, the people of Africa. At one point, one was saying the black people of Africa, but we are saying Africa is more than color, than black and white and yellow. Apparently, I'm told there are no white people, but that is Africa. So in the studio today, I'm joined as usual with my sister here, Rachel Takali, and also Bwana Rugarama. Now, this Ndugu Rugarama is the man in charge of the chapter, the Pan-African chapter in Uganda. Now, there was a question that was put to me, and I will put it to him today, because we are talking about issues of Africa economic empowerment. But the viewer from Congo was asking, who is funding Pan-African activities in Uganda? And that is not my question. It was a question for Bwana Rugarama, who will answer that.
I take over?
Yes.
Thank you so much. What a way.
Are you shocked at this question?
What a way to start the show. First of all, by the time somebody asks that, then certainly he understands what Pan-Africanism is and the Pan-African movement. From the 1994 conference that took place here in Uganda, the resolution number 14, I can cross-check on that, gave the countries which participated and all the other states that, even if they were not around, to establish the national chapters. And it is from that majority of the countries that subscribe to Pan-Africanism started national chapters. And this very national chapter, which I chair, started that time. And because Uganda retained the Global Secretariat at that time, which has never gone away, there was a sense in which the two moved together. The Pan-African Movement Global Secretariat and the National Chapter, because we shared the same patron. That is the President of the Republic of Uganda. Up to now, we still have the same patron. And in a way, the Global Secretariat retained, because the idea was that all the member states should be giving subscription. Now, I don't want to go into the subscription issue because actually nobody...
exactly, that's what I'm going to say. Do you mean that members are defaulting on the obligation?
Actually, almost 100%. We have got 100% default. And it is only Uganda that has been giving some money to the Global Secretariat. Now, people must note that the Global Secretariat is not the same thing as the National Chapter. So, the National Chapter has been funding itself. We do a number of projects, we do research, we partner with African Union, we do agriculture, We have got a formidable business-minded team within our ranks. We partner with other bodies in Uganda, like Uganda National Students Association, like the National Youth Council. We partner with schools, universities, and colleges. And we do all that it takes to sustain ourselves. And of course, we have got a board, we have got other members who have got the Pan-African spirit, who once in a while also send in something. It may not be something sustainable, but like our slogan goes, the challenges we have as the Pan-African Movement International Chapter, we do not agonize. Instead, we organize for a better chapter. So basically, you can, in summary, say that the national chapter gives itself the nerve, the source of funds is something that we do ourselves because of the nature of businesses and other engagements within Uganda and outside Uganda that we take. But we will come and we shall keep calling upon all well-wishers and business-minded people to come join us such that we can better facilitate this body.
Yeah, thank you. Because that was a question that was put to me, and I thought it was not.
I'm glad. I hope he has gotten the answer, and the
yes.
others also.
Yeah, because I think he was also thinking that this who is funding the African Pan-African chapters, not only in Uganda but of course across the continent, and of course there are those that are outside of the continent.
Yes.
So he wanted to know definitely how these chapters are being funded. Other than that, of course, there was another question to Rachel. I hope we'll answer it next time. But other than that, how was your week? How has your week been?
Mine or his?
We start. Maybe I finish up.
Yes, of course. You finish up yours first.
You see, the week like last time. Of course, last time we had a number of packed activities, and I allowed my sister Rachel to go through them. The number of conferences, women judges, and all sorts of things there.
These women.
But
we're having a lot of women things. Men,
Imagine how we've been feeling all this year.
That was last week. But really, as far as I'm concerned, I have particularly paid attention to the pending commencement of PRE and the UCE. Then I have looked at the cancellation of visitations because we are having visitations to schools due to the scare of Ebola outbreak. They have cancelled the visitations throughout the country. And we are now being asked to drop whatever we have at the gates, and the management will will further manage the delivery of whatever would have brought to schools. Then, of course, that tells you that there is a scare that business is going to be affected, because we so much remember it is not lost on us how much time, how much money and business we lost during COVID-19. Of course, the other has been the global events. There is the Ukraine-Russia situation has not eased. It is instead escalating. There have been increased bombardments by Russia into Ukraine. And like I have always said, I don't know exactly what the NATO body wants to achieve by continuously propping up Ukraine to do what it is doing. Neither do I know exactly what Russia wants to achieve by the continued bombardment. So the kind of altercation that we see now in Ukraine I unfortunately don't see the measures being put in place to solve that. Maybe I want to conclude by looking at the concluded Ethiopian Federal Republic of Ethiopia and the Tigray, the Tigray Peace Accord. I give it kudos, the members that participated in that. This is the kind of peace that we want if we must have an Africa that is progressive.
Yeah, because definitely the last point is very crucial, especially for the African continent. We think being known for conflict 1, conflict 2, we have conflict here, conflict. And the people who are giving us guns to slaughter ourselves, the same people who are coming up to say, hey, look, what is happening? Why can't you do something? Poor governance. They're talking of corruption, but they're the same people who are helping us to slaughter ourselves. So that peace agreement is very crucial. I think something worth celebrating for the Africans, and I hope both parties adhere to the terms they are in, that we can apparently now get peace back into a country which already has a number of issues to tackle other than the peace issue. So if the peace issue is solved, then these other issues are going to be solved.
Maybe, comrade, do you remember the death of, just forgotten, the death of senior comrade Hussein Kashirinji, which occurred just yesterday, should be yesterday. Yeah, that is a sad moment, but there is a lot of history around him. Then there is also a lot of politics around when he retired from the army, what he has been doing, whether he died a justified man, what could have happened, was he forgiven by the system, was he part of the system?
Or did he forgive the system?
Was he in the league of Tadeo Ikondere, something like that? But it is sad that one of the old guards has passed away. We wish that maybe, we hope that where he is going is a better place than where he has been. And we want to condole with the family and also to comfort them in this trying moment.
Sure, sure. Rachel,
Yes.
your week.
The week has had a number of developments. Of course, we've already talked about Ebola.
Nothing women.
Except maybe from Mama Janet's angle. She's a woman and the head of the Education Ministry, who was recently shown her mother's side when she decided that the children who are in isolation, you know, some of those candidates are now locked away on account of being in immediate contacts of some of these people who are confirmed cases of Ebola. And she came out last evening to say those children need to be offered the opportunity to actually sit for their exams.
Sure.
Every arrangement needs to be in place to make sure that they actually don't lose this exam year because they are not confirmed to have Ebola, even if they were in contact with some of these cases. So you're talking about something woman, I think that is one of them.
Sure.
But that aside, I've been thinking more seriously about Kenya's commitment to enter the Congo puzzle. They have actually put this into action. It's been on the drawing board for a while now. And we also know that DRC Congo actually prefers a Kenya presence because they don't have the baggage of having encumbered themselves in the situation that is DRC's internal struggles. We hope that there will be people who add themselves to that equation, or nations, because it's more complex than we think. That aside, East African parliamentarians have also injected another question to the puzzle that is the financing of the East African project. while you were asking about the Pan-African financing, some people now say that, look, why should we contribute to this cause, the East African Community cause, to the same degree, when Kenya has a bigger GDP, followed by Tanzania, Uganda, and so on and so forth. The people are now saying it should be proportionate, and that some other countries benefit more than others. They don't see why, if you have a bigger economic output, you put in the same as Burundi, that has a GDP of about 2.5 billion. Why?
The poorest in the world.
Yes. So there are people who are saying that equation needs to be revisited. If Kenya's economy is almost twice as big as Tanzania's, and about 3 times as big as Uganda's, or 4 times, should we contribute to the same degree? Yeah. After all, you also benefit more than all the others.
Sure.
So I thought that is an interesting proposal that is now on the table. Aside from that, Uganda is again doing what is concerning many planners, and that is the request that is on the table in Parliament, where the Finance Ministry is asking for an additional 1.7 trillion.
Someone is
This is very factual. It has been happening all week.
I like that.
I come again. The Ministry of Finance is before Parliament asking for approval budget to borrow 1.7 trillion from the domestic for the domestic arena to finance development issues and other related concerns. Parliament is saying, look, we are not even satisfied with your expenditure of what you took. You're not clear where you're even taking this money.
It was little.
Really? Where were you looking? Little? Why didn't you plan better?
Of course, things have
and
changed.
They're saying this history of now becoming a culture of always supplementing.
When was the new budget read?
In June.
2 months ago.
Yeah.
And you want 1.7 trillion?
Because a lot has changed. But I think we, now that's raising a question which I wanted us to look at, maybe could be next time also. The funding, the government funding, especially in Africa, but also the rate at which we borrow and sometimes why we borrow, the needs for why we borrow and the prompt and why, definitely. But
I think, even before you complete your submission, Mr. Mututa, the most important concern of the legislators and all of us here, I know, is that the way this money is spent is never what we expect.
But you also,
it's not done well.
But you also remember they had also asked for an increment in their...
In what?
In their remunerations. So where were they?
No, that one was shelved by the president. He said no. Maybe that's why they are very keen to get in the way of this one. But that aside, this culture of never planning appropriately.
No, that one definitely is an issue. True.
And the culture of spending poorly and excessively cannot be the way to go.
That one I agree with you.
So for me, that is something that I've been thinking about all week long. And they're pushing very hard, Mr. Rugarama. Pushing very hard to have this thing through. No one is feeling good about this particular submission, but there they are. So you wonder, who are these planners who never project properly? So who are these spenders who never do it right? And when we think that organizations such as IGG, to check these sorts of excesses, or Auditor General, are never financed to the degree they should be. So what is the problem?
For me, there could be a genuine reason as to why the money is needed, and there could also be a genuine reason why there were oversights of, I mean, it's just not even halfway into the financial year, and you can have this problem, this turbulence at the beginning of the financial year. It means,
and you can be sure there will be bad.
And there will be more problems as we go along. But the issue should be the focus. How do we project? How do we look at the figures before this happened, there must be a problem. Maybe something needs to be looked at in terms of projections, because we are now living in a very turbulent times in terms of finance. The rest one was talking, and I think that's why I said maybe next time I'll look at it. For COVID, for example, when we had from onset, the rich countries were borrowing money for COVID, and they really borrowed a lot. For poor countries, Africa particularly, we didn't do any borrowing, and these people are borrowing at more or less no interest. For us, you are borrowing at 10, 15 from the World Bank and the rest. So these are some of the issues. That's why you see some of the African governments are definitely struggling, and I don't know how long they are going to hang on, but in terms of economics, it's going to be a bad time for the next 3-4 years for Africa before it gets back to our feet. Talking of funding, yesterday there was also the other story. We were talking about Uganda, this particular one, about Ebola. Government saying we need about this much to be able to fund and fight Ebola, and almost the same figure, I don't remember the figure, the American embassy has given, I think, slightly above what has been required of the Minister of Health.
And it was not direct cash.
Yes, now
and that's
what the question is. Why this money could have been given to the government of Uganda?
They're weary,
but it was passed through some NGOs and some groups to be able to do exactly what the government of Uganda should have been able to do. Is this a vote of no confidence in the government of Uganda, or is it one of those ways of trying to undermine the governments of Africa? Because that's also a very big issue. So what happens? This money is definitely for Uganda and supposed to help Uganda to solve this issue, this problem of COVID. But the Americans are saying, no, with your level of corruption, no way. I mean, we are not going to give you this money, but we are giving it to you through a third party.
What has always happened, Comrade Mtuta, I don't know if the word always is the correct one, but I think about some years ago, there was a new development in the sense that the funders decided not to do direct deliveries. They would not, they chose to work through partners who are not necessarily mainstream ministries. And that also got the government thinking. The reasons, of course, which they are, the funders, the donors advanced, were some you have just mentioned, that the levels of corruption within government, mainstream government, were high. And it would therefore be suicidal for the funders to entrust cash with such people who could not be trusted in as far as managing the funds is concerned. There was also the thinking that there is a lot of bureaucracy, the red tape, that by the time programs are rolled out and there is implementation, there is a lot of time that would have been wasted. But if government, I mean if the funders, the donors gave money direct to some of these implementers like NGOs, it is easier and quicker for majority of these programs to be implemented. That's part of the argument. The government, however, has had squinted eyes when it comes to the new adopted approach of advancing this kind of money. The government has argued that there is a way the oversight role of the line ministries is being sidestepped.
I agree with that.
By the there you go, by the funders, with a sole purpose of empowering these non-government organizations to take over and God knows also probably overthrow the government, because there
it
is
has
quite a
happened
lot
in Latin America, it has happened in the other parts of the world. It cannot happen. It can also happen in Africa.
It's possible, because you remember the late senior comrade Gabriel Mugabe, one time in an interview with Christian Amon Power, argued that there is a problem of these little non-government organizations forming a parallel government in Zimbabwe, because you have empowered them, your governments over there have empowered them with a lot of resources, millions of dollar money, and they are now doing business directly. We know, of course, without necessarily wanting to step up the debate and consuming a lot of time, because I don't think that is the topic for today, but the government, for some good reasons, I think, is very worried that this business of allowing non-government organizations to access large sums of money, because we have had in the past Ugandan government freezing accounts of these major Chapter 4, our friend here, what is the name of the non-government organization? They freeze those accounts. And the argument was that there was a lot of money which was being channeled there, and the agenda and also what was being delivered to the public from those non-government organizations was undermining government programs. And probably the intelligence also had given some clues that something was happening in there. So, like I said, that could form another topic today, and then we waste a lot of time there. But I think that although I agree with the government that there is need to provide oversight role in as far as what the non-government organizations are doing, and although we have seen the increased participation and vigilance of the authorities, non-governmental NGO board, to check the status, the activities of the non-government organizations and CBOs, there is also worry that government exercises a lot of grip on some of these NGOs for purposes of not wanting some information to get to the public, which would probably help the public, because they are, NGOs by their nature are supposed to provide to fill the gaps which are not necessarily covered by government. Government cannot cover everything, but that is, in majority of the cases, that is academic, because sometimes, especially now, when you look at some intelligence debunked, I mean the declassified intelligence information, we know what non-government organizations world over have been used to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. So government is correct to worry, but at the same time, there is a need to strike a balance.
Yes, and that's what for me I believe, like you said, this is not a discussion for it, but we'll have time, we can always talk about this, the NGOs vis-a-vis the government, and you see the roles, and in some cases you have had duplication, and then that the resources, in most cases, which would have been used for some good cause, get drained. But anyway, that's a discussion for another day. Rachel, you have something on that?
I think, as you said, that many of the times the true nature of the situation is usually overstepped by considerations that draw us away from the real nature of the problem. Like you say, like Brother Ndugu Rugarama was saying earlier, it is true that the considerations that these funders are taking into account, they exist and they're with us. And they're not new. So if someone has been saying, of course this person has another agenda, we've spent a lot of time on that matter. But if they are saying that you're bleeding resources, before you become obsessed with getting that money back into your hands, why don't you cure the holes in your pocket. So what I'm saying is that while these non-government organizations are not innocent, we also know they have an
Of course,
agenda.
yeah.
Why is it that you don't plug your side of the hole? Why are you spending all the time keeping this man from getting the money, yet when it comes to your side, we are also not satisfied with the execution?
Yeah, because I agree with you on that, that while we blame these people for doing all that, are we clean?
No. So what are you doing about the fact that you're not clean? Will you continue to say, I am not clean, yes, but it should not be a white man telling me? Really? We are also saying we're not happy on the receiving end. So what we are saying is that the fastest way, we're talking about collapsing borders. The fastest way to collapse borders is to empower everybody to a reasonable degree, so that they see their stakeholder position in this equation. So we're saying the fastest way to take this argument from these people is to style up.
Sure.
Because after a while, when you meet them on the table and you're saying, look, you're empowering people who are actually undermining the state. And there is no reason to do this because I am able to execute this thing to a perfect degree. So what is your justification? That argument will collapse. But right now, they are right to a degree. Because even us, the people who consume these services, are fed up with inefficiency. We're also fed up with excuses. We're also fed up with incompetencies. Do we deserve this just because it's a white man who said it? No, we don't.
My week also had, of course, many of the things that you have talked, but my interest and concern was drawn to two global events that took us by surprise. One of them was the Halloween festival in South Korea, where I think yesterday about 150 people plus had died from the stampede.
What is that Halloween business?
It is a Western concept where it happens every end of October, the 31st actually. And they say it has its roots actually in Satanism.
In paganism.
Paganism. It's steeped in horror films and horrible costumes and horrible masks, and they think it's a good thing.
They believe it is a time when the living and the spirits interact.
It is wicked, really.
It's something which is weird and stupid.
Yes, it is weird, in which they have sunk a lot of money. And I used to work I was a manager in a toy store in America. And our focus was on toys and on that sort of thing. So at that time of year, parents shop heavily for costumes, for there's what they call trick or treat. They do these sweets and candy, and the children are supposed to go from. They dress it up. It's weird. The children go around from door to door. They knock and they say trick or treat, and then they offer you sweets and so on. But then there's also a demonic side where some of these treats are actually laced with razor blades and so on. People actually die.
Oops.
So what the hell was it doing in Korea?
The westernization, even here, the elite.
To the extent that even now some religious organizations have co-opted that into in the church, saying it is a saint's day, something like that. It is so funny.
It's
now
a very weird concept.
The painful part, of course, we are not.
And then they have skeletons.
Exactly.
And then it is a mix of fear and excitement. It's unthinkable, and they spend all sorts of money on these scary things. They invest in these skeletal-looking things, and then you can be walking around the corridor and someone jumps out and scares you. That is supposed to be exciting. It's weird.
Now, scaring as it is, people, and this could have been avoided anyway, because we are told that people were packed in one place
A narrow corridor.
Yes, a very narrow corridor. And
It's a
there was
very
no-
dark and twisted, some places it's even a holiday.
So that's what happened. And what happened was, I mean, what was anticipated, but I think it could have been avoided, that if it was controlled, this could have been avoided.
But why are you celebrating the dead?
They died. Now, the other thing was in India, on the other swinging bridge, which could have also been avoided, actually, and was unfortunately, definitely.
Wasn't it poor construction, like we are used to around here?
I don't think it was poor construction, because this bridge has lived for a number of years. It had been closed down for repairs. But when you look at what was happening on the bridge, then for me, I may not pass the judgment on the construction, because you see people swinging the bridge, swing left, swing right, swing, and the thing is packed with about 200 people on the same bridge. So what do you expect? It is exactly what
Where
is
were they
happening.
going? What was special? They've been working on it for a long time, so where were they going?
So these things really shocked me, but also kept me wondering, say, what is happening? Because you definitely expected that this would happen, and indeed happened. So for me, those two have not come to terms to how and why that people could be able to do this, and at the end you are now having families who have lost relatives, children who have lost parents, husbands who have lost wives, and wives who have lost, and so.
But Ndugu Mtuta, talking about things that cause us to reflect, news just in indicates that former Vice President Edward Sekandi is in a critical state. He was outside the country.
He was rushed where? Something like
To
that?
Dubai, or
Dubai,
I think he
yes.
was in that area. So he's hospitalized, and our prayers.
Yeah, we hear he has been taken to hospital in Dubai, and we hope he will be okay. I think we will be getting information on that, but we are told he developed some illness in Dubai after landing, and he was taken to a hospital in Dubai. So these are some of the things that have been of the week. Some of them really very interesting, others very scary, and others are very painful. But all that said and done, I think the most important things for us, we are happy.
We're still
that,
among the living.
Yeah, among the living. We didn't interact with the dead, but we're among the living. And Uganda has also been with a lot of issues. And now the most scary thing, our Halloween today, is the Ebola. And I hope, like we had said that earlier, the team in the health team in Uganda has over time built capacity. They will be able to handle that. I know funding is becoming a problem, but whichever resources that will be there, Ugandans will have to survive this outbreak too. Now, we will be looking at what is happening on the continent of Africa, and today we are looking at ethnicity, and at a wider spectrum we would say racism in Africa, but Africa is a continent of ethnicities, a continent of people, a continent of clans, a continent of tribes, a continent of languages, which is very important, by the way, because we know of people who have no clan, who have no tribe, who have no nothing, and their lives are not as easy as you can imagine. So we'll be now looking at what happens on this continent in terms of ethnicity and the racism that some of people have been subjected to, even within the continent itself. Bwana Rugarama, do you also believe that the issue of ethnicity is something to look at on this continent?
I absolutely agree that ethnicity is a very important component of life. You see, we can have an argument, for instance, that ethnicity, or tribes, if you like, is nothing but a social construct. Some scholars have argued that way, that it is a creation of people's mind, what you put in your mind, that for instance, you are an Itosite, you are Mnyankore, you are a Fulani, you are a Hausa, you are an Igbo, you know, that at that level, you are Chikuyu, that this is what you have just, it is probably what was even transferred onto you by your parents. There is that kind of thinking. But anthropologically, we know that humankind is grouped. Even when you look at all the archaeological science, you get a revelation that people were anthropologically grouped, even up to now. The worry which probably, and I think that is the reason why we are debating ethnicity here, tribalism, if you like. People don't like calling them tribes because they think that that one is kind of degrading and an insult. So we prefer to talk about ethnicity. Then, of course, at a wider scale, it would be a race. And when we talk about race now, it is usually associated with or racism, for that matter, not just race, really racism. We are looking, it is usually tagged to what we have seen over time, historically, in America, in Europe. We had a taste of it, of course, here in South Africa, where we had a certain group of people, they call themselves white, create apartheid in South Africa, and they deemed themselves to be superior, and they harassed the natives, whom they considered not worthy to be called human beings. And for a very long time, the group that constituted themselves into a fighting group in South Africa fought, of course we do remember the Mandela, to make sure that they get rid of that apartheid regime. When you go to majority of Arab world, especially Arab Africa, there are people of a darker skin, be it Libya, be it Morocco. I remember when I was in Morocco with a senior comrade some years back, in one of the markets in Casablanca, some group of women stopped and stared at us, and they asked how Africa was. Now, trust people like some of these guys who were around, they offered a lecture of 10 minutes to tell them that actually you are African yourself. Never mind that countries like Morocco have made more than 3 attempts to join Europe, and every time they apply, their application is rejected. So you got countries like Algeria. Now Algeria, the Pan-African credentials cannot be taken away from them because we know their history, we know how they were fighting to get rid of France. They were colonized by the French. We know that some of these communities, even in Morocco, they have got Jews within their ranks. They have got the Arabs who are of a darker skin in Egypt, for instance, and they do great stuff. You know, they are great writers, they are professors, but their history, their biography is not going to come out simply because of racism. So, but let me just a little bit go back, because I was just trying to skirt around to show our viewers some of these aspects within ethnicity and racism and where we come from. Of course, when we go to America, then we remember very well the fights that we have had as a result of increased racism throughout the history of the black community. We've had the likes of Malcolm X, we've had the likes of Minister Farrakhan, who is still living by God's grace. We've had the likes of Dr. Martin Luther King. We've had the likes of Elijah Muhammad. And all these, and of course, you cannot forget Marcus Garvey. So all these have actually been at the forefront of making sure that they do away with racism. Now, that is at that level. And of course, we know how Pan-Africanism was born, that when you look at all these conferences we are talking about, be it London, be it France, later on in Accra, Ghana, then here in Uganda, all this was a conglomeration of the pressure that was building up between the whites, those who consider themselves to be whites, and looking at other races, especially the most battered one, of course, has been the black race as inferior, and to make sure that they have to keep them in that inferior position, and also the black community also saying word over that we cannot be kept here. Now,
but I think on that one, before you proceed, without cutting you short, when you talk of racism, especially in the, for the American context, I think someone cannot, or if at all, give a lecture about human rights to others when it comes to the black community in the US, because this structurally they have been made to remain at the lowest. But you know, blacks in America have also done wonders in terms of academics, in terms of sports, in terms of all spheres of life. But what surprises me that even when Obama was the president of US, I think that was the worst time that the blacks in the US suffered in terms of racism. And then, of course, what we are seeing later on, maybe that also tried to keep some people away, but immediately he left. We have seen what has happened. So I think when it comes to racism, and particularly when talking about America, I think should be that learning lesson that not a lot of lessons can be given to others when it comes to human rights, when you look at how blacks are treated in that part of the world.
You see what happens, Comrade Mututa and our dear viewers. What happens, especially in a setting like the American setting, forget about what they will say on their media, the CNN and also Fox News and print media. All this, of course, is choreographed, and they know what they are doing. And of course, when you sell your message wholesale and with amount of force and energy like the Americans do, and you do it to our gullible society who do not have alternative source of information, it sells wholesale, and you are bound to get a lot of converts. But the truth of the matter is that the American leadership is structured in such a manner that racism is going to be experienced in the education sector, it was going to be experienced in the housing sector, in the health insurance sector, in the police recruitment, and as long as, of course, when they want to hoodwink you, they are going to bring a one of Barack Obama. He's dark, and you will call him one of you. Now, in order to debunk that and get to grips with reality, you need to get in touch with very hard-hitting literature and also seasoned analysts like Dr. Umar Johnson, the likes of Minister Louis Farrakhan, And of course, we cannot forget, we move retrogressive and look at the works of people like Dr. Martin Luther Jr.
Yes.
and the Malcolm X's. Their studies then are still extremely very relevant. So therefore,
viewer, when we come back, we shall be putting more flesh to that point when we talk about racism, and also down back at home in the continent when we talk about our tribal and the ethnicity, the benefits, the strength, and the problems that we can, if not well managed. Shortly, don't go away. We'll be back with more of this discussion. Thank you.
So quick.
The Tales of Kasozi, brought to you by Uganda Communications Commission.
Hello?
Hello?
This is Kasozi. How can I help you?
Hey, Kasozi, my brother. Long time. We last met when we were at campus. It's been a while, but you are the person I'm looking for.
Campus? Really?
Hey, you don't remember me?
Okay, so how can I help you?
I'm stuck in Gulu making millions, and I need to urgently send money to my sick mother. But I can't find any mobile money agent near me. I've sent the money to your phone, as you can see the message. It might take a few minutes to come through, but I urgently need you to send the money to my mother. Let me send you her number, and you send it to her chap.
My friend, I'm afraid your mom is going to die.
What?
Because I don't know you, I never went to campus, and I'm also in Gulu. So can we meet at CPS, we talk about it?
Stay tuned for what Kasozi does next.
Tofera. Refrain from unnecessary engagements with strangers over the phone. This message is powered by the Uganda Communications Commission.
It's Freaky Friday from Airtel. Buy or gift. Buy or give.
Get freaky too! Dial *149*10# to load a Freaky Friday bundle for you to enjoy the best offers on voice and data.
To buy a bundle for friends and family, dial *149*10*5#. Freaky Friday with Airtel. Buy or gift a bundle today. Dial *149*10# to get started. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Bannayuganda bannange, mubadde mukimanyi nti tufiirwa obutonde ku misinde egyayiriyiri. Entobazi kye kimu ku bintu ebisinga okusaanyizibwawo mu nsangi zino, emirundi 3 okusinga ebibira. Kino kireese okufiirwa entobazi n'emigaso gyazo okukuuma obutonde. Mbasaba okussaayo omwoyo tulyoke tusobole okukuuma entobazi era awamu n'obutonde. Mu linnya lya Kitaffe n'Omwana n'Omwoyo Mutukuvu. Amen.
Obubaka buno butuusiddwako Minisitule y'Amazzi n'Obutonde, Minisitule y'Ebyobulimi, Obulunzi n'Obuvubi, ekitongole ky'eggwanga ekivunaanyizibwa ku by'embeera y'obudde ki Uganda National Meteorological Authority wamu n'olukiiko olutaba enzikiriza ez'enjawulo Interreligious Council nga bawagiddwa gavumenti ya Uganda, Green Climate Fund n'ekitongole ky'ensi yonna ki United Nations Development Program.
The Ministry of Health informs the public that there are confirmed cases of Ebola in Uganda. We, however, urge the public not to panic as the situation is being managed. The Ministry of Health further reminds the public to be on the lookout for any persons who may show signs and symptoms of Ebola. These include high body temperature, abdominal pains, diarrhea, vomiting, bleeding from the body openings such as the nose, eyes, and mouth. Please inform the nearest health worker immediately if you see anyone with these signs and symptoms. To prevent Ebola from spreading further, please take the following preventive measures: regular washing of hands with water and soap, avoid handshaking and hugging, avoiding any contact with any suspected Ebola patients. Any person who dies suddenly should not be buried but reported to the nearest health worker or LC1 immediately. For further information, please call the Ministry of Health toll-free number on 0800 100 066 or send a free SMS to your report on 8500. This message is from the Ministry of Health with support from UNICEF and World Health Organization.
Yeah, welcome back, and thank being with us on this Friday, Pan-African Friday, where we look at issues that concern the people who live in this country, this continent of Africa, but also beyond in other parts of the world where we have the African populations. We have over 20 countries outside of Africa that actually have major Africa populations, and they are also sometimes watching and following us on these platforms and their TVs. We are looking at the issue of ethnicity. Of course, Africans are known for tribes, for clans, for societies. Is this an advantage or a disadvantage to us, the people of Africa? Ndugu Rugarama was still on that point when we went for the break, and I think I'll allow him to finish up, to pick up from where he had stopped. Ndugu Rugarama, don't you think that part of our strength as the people of Africa and our social security is the societies, the clans, the families, and the ethnicities to which we belong?
Thank you so much, Comrade Mtuta, once again. Ethnicity, like I said earlier on, or tribes, if you like, we cannot run away from them. Anthropologically speaking, we cannot run away from them. But what we have had, unfortunately, through the recent years, has been the unfortunate episodes unfolding on the African continent, whereby tribe, ethnicity, has been negatively used by major politicians and colonialists. Allow me the latitude to look at the kind of society that Africa in particular, but also the same measure can be applied on the global scale. But this particular one is the so-called Greek. You know, the Greek philosophers, and I don't want to go into the debate of the Greek philosophers, because majority of what they say the Greek philosophy is about is actually the African wisdom, because there is a very serious connection between the Socrates of this world and African Socrates. So what they usually give the Greeks is actually ours. But let me just say this, that there is there are three groups of people, if you like. There are three groups of tribes which the Greek thinkers have always advanced. One is the idiots. Now, the idiots...
Is that an ethnicity?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, it's a tribe. It is a class of people.
It's a tribe of idiots.
So it's called the idiots. Now, you see, when you talk about idiots, people will quickly jump onto a conclusion that actually
the usual idiots.
Somebody is intellectually challenged. No, that's not what it means. An idiot is a group, a class of people who think to themselves that they only matter to themselves, and they want to create a situation whereby they keep to themselves. It's a group of people that are increasing on the African continent, whereby they build beautiful houses and they put second-year wall fences and they put panic buttons in their houses, and they keep away from the rest of the people. They don't want to know. Now, those are classified as idiots.
Wow.
And they're increasing. They're increasing. We have to guard against that, because we may also fall
among the
into
idiots.
that category of idiots. Now, the second class.
Are you addressing our elite class?
I will come there, because they are also there. They may fall in two categories actually. Then the other category, the other tribe, the other ethnicity is the tribesmen. You see, the tribesmen is an ethnicity. It is a tribe. It is a group of people who who identify themselves as belonging to a class whereby they will be in organizations, government, and they are doing all sorts of things which are not necessarily benefiting anybody, but they are Kikuyu, they are Banyankore, they are Fulani, they are Igbo, they are anything if you like. And that group of people, when and once and if they fall in a problem, they will appeal to the tribal sentiments. See, they are finishing us. For us with Banyankore, you see what they are doing? They have terminated my services in government. They have put me on Katebe. Yeah, we say here. Then the tribesmate will come running to that particular tribalist rescue, and the argument will be, okay, we are aware that actually this tribesmate of ours is actually a thief. We know he's not a good man, but you see, he's ours. You see, so really, don't mistreat him to that degree. After all, is he the only thief? We have an increasing clan, an increasing tribe in that regard. And you have seen it, Mtuta and every floor here. Yeah. You know that we have got that ethnicity. That tribe is there. Away from the idiots, the only difference is that one can be an idiot and at the same time be a tribesman.
It's even worse when it's both.
You see, and the majority of them are actually in both categories. So, the other tribes, and you see, even if you are, like I said, even if you are not supporting, even if you are not giving anything to your tribesmate, still, because you belong to that tribe, they will come to your rescue and you can go and fool yourself the way you want to. The final group, the third tribe, the third ethnicity, is, according to the Greek mythology, is the statesman, or I mean the actual citizen, not the statesman, citizen. Now the citizen, it is considered, that ethnicity, that tribe, is considered to be the most upright, foresighted, the most respecting, those knowledgeable, and give due regard to other people in society. This is the group of people, probably I would put in that category one general who said there is no need of putting saline on salines on my vehicle to chase away other road users. It's a group of people, the Mtutas of this world, the Rachels of this world, the Organimas of this world, and etc., who are going to use the road properly. That you are driving and you keep your left. You are not going to hoot unnecessarily. You are imagining that somebody who is supposed to use the right is actually using the right.
Yeah.
And he's not going to come to your left. You see, so these are the citizens. Now, the unfortunate part of it is that we do not have the citizens. The increasing tribes we have, the increasing ethnicity that we have, is the idiots and the tribesmen. Now, having said that, let me also say this, that there is no harm in having ethnicity, because speaking anthropologically, society has got to be structured.
Sure.
Now, the structuring of society can either be historical or socially constructed. The problem we have is that historically, if you are a Muganda, because I'm trying to bring out this picture, a Muganda who marries a Munyankore, for instance, or a Muganda or a Mudama who is going to marry a person from Mbare. What will be the tribe of a child? They will say we go by the man's tribe. But in actual sense, if you are going to go by, if there was such a thing, because you see, these tribes, these ethnicities are not in DNA. I don't think that, for instance, there is an archaeologist that will come and say, I have tested the bones of my brother Mututa. Once you are gone, you are not about to go, don't get worried. And I have concluded that actually this is a man from the hills of Mbare, so he certainly must be Masaba. Eh?
No, but even that one can be
I'm coming. So, and that by DNA, therefore, this one is a Munyankore, this one is a Chikuyu, this one is a Furani. We can only go to bigger organizations, bigger human being classifications, whereby you will say, okay, according to the size of the bone, probably this was from this particular region. The point I'm making is that in a majority of the cases, the ethnicity, tribes, is actually social construction.
True.
That as you move further, you will find that you can actually kill a tribe for very good reasons at the expense of building a nation. Our senior brother in Tanzania, they did that. Not that in Tanzania don't think that there are no tribes, but it is very hard if, for instance, I asked you, what was the tribe of Dr. Magufuli? What was the tribe of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere? What is even the tribe of Hassan now, the current president? But if I asked you the tribe of the current president of Kenya, don't you know it? If I ask you the tribe of the current president of Uganda, don't you know it? Why don't you know the tribe of the presidents in Tanzania, but you know the tribes of the presidents in Kenya and Uganda? It tells you, therefore, that as long as society constructs that this is tribe, and in majority of the cases for very wrong reasons, that you will know the tribe of the president in Burundi, the tribe of the president in Rwanda, simply because there is a very bad history and there is a social construct of tribe. That the white man created that tribe, emphasized it, and therefore that the present president of Rwanda is this tribe, and he must also be fought by another tribe.
But you know, even building on that, these tribes, they are not being named by the colonial or the neo-colonialists, the colonial masters.
They literally found, they emphasized it.
it is ourselves who are promoting these tribes. But again, for me, I think the clan, the tribe, the ethnicity is not a problem.
How we use them.
Yes.
That was my point. How do we use the tribe? How do you use the clan? Because you see, it's not that Europe does not have these clans. It's not that Europe does not have these tribes. As a matter of fact, when you go to Germany now, you refer to all the Germans as Germans. But we know that there were Bavarian Germans,
yes,
and there were also these other Saxon Germans.
Yes.
Now, in that case, if they were to emphasize their differences, what sort of Germans would they be? You see?
But it also comes again back to us that maybe there is not much that we are focusing on, then that forces us to focus on the micro, the smaller things. Because like I'm saying that having a clan is okay, having a tribe is okay, belonging to an ethnic group is okay because that's where you belong. Because the absence of it could also be disastrous, where you don't know where you are coming from, and then you don't know where you are heading. But how we use some of these social groupings can also be detrimental or can be beneficial to our very existence. Rachel wanted to say something there.
I think to properly dissect this particular issue, we have to return to the definition of what a tribe is. Because I think in most instances, we draw a reference from a colonial outlook on what a tribe really is. But a tribe, unlike the modern expression, ethnicity is just a wider version of what a tribe is. But a tribe is a social division, really, of a community made up of communities, families. And these ones are really bound by social, economic, religious, especially blood ties. Because when you're talking about clans, they actually descended from a common source. But more than that, tribes draw their, are rooted in a common culture, language, and in many cases, a common leader. Of course, we have cases where the common leader cannot easily be traced. But in most cases, in traditional society, there was either a paramount chief or a king in many of our cases. My own view is that the social construction that Nduguru Garama has just been talking about is not a bad thing. And the reason why this mindset or this expression, tribe, ethnicity, race, continues to be such a strong point in modern times is because the state, the modern state, and in this case the African state, has not offered a viable alternative. What do I mean? If tribes offer real alternatives in terms of economy, in terms of religion, there's also traditional religion. So we're not talking about Catholicism or Islam or so on and so forth.
As long as you're not talking about Halloween.
No, that is someone else's. But Africans also had their own traditional religion. It exists.
Actually, even there, there are only current kind of Halloween. They also have.
So
even the so-called Protestants, Catholics, they still go back to the African traditional religion.
That's why I was trying to say that the reason why the tribe, the ethnic base remains resilient and very strong is because, first of all, the colonizer just grafted his own expression of what social construction is about on top of a very strong and solid foundation, which is our tribes and our ethnicities. You talked at a very practical level, and I was thinking about it earlier today. You and I, even today, the most reliable, what should I say? The most reliable place or fallback position is your tribe.
Yeah, for your home, your family.
Most of us in African society and the expressions are different in Asia and so on and so forth. Many of us, the state cannot deliver a job, but your tribe can.
Sure.
Do I make sense? The state in most cases cannot deliver, name it, cannot deliver the life you have envisioned, but your tribe can. There are many cases, for example, if you're a trader, you have this this good or service that you want to sell. While the immediate community in which you live, like Metropolitan Kampala, for example, many of the people are not from the same ethnic group. So you may be a dealer in cement, but then there is a certain procurement officer in a certain major organization who is of your tribe. The chances are that that person will do you that favor on account primarily of tribe. I am saying the reason why the state has failed to supplant the tribe is because the tribe delivers.
And they don't have to. They don't have to.
The moment, and we've talked about just like the boundaries or the borders. We've talked about this previously.
Yes.
The reason boundaries will become weaker and weaker when the citizens actually see that they benefit more from cross-border relations than keeping themselves confined, like you talked about. The
As
idiots.
an idiot.
The idiots, the reason why they confine themselves there, their gains to that kind of lifestyle. The tribe, no amount of talking will cause a nation to supersede the tribe. No amount of sidelining will displace the tribe. What will displace the position? And when we say tribe, we're talking about our loyalties, in most cases, are first and foremost to our tribes. Why?
So in other words, what we're saying, and like Ndugu Lugarama put it, the tribe, the ethnicity is not a problem, because that's where life starts.
Yes.
How we use it.
Yes.
Who uses it.
Yes.
For what purpose.
And
but
as you said,
the problem is when we use it, maybe as idiots, or maybe we use it as tribalistic, as tribal-men, or we use it for...
But then that is not automatic. Being tribalistic is not automatic. The failure of the state to deliver is the problem. Because if I know that if I have the right qualifications and I can present them in the right forum, I will be automatically considered if they are better than whoever else is there. Then there is no reason to keep falling back to my tribe. But the fact is that when I go there, the stakeholders also have their own tribes, if you know what I mean. And so they tend to cater to those people more than whoever is supremely qualified. That is where the problem is.
So let's look at the issue of the East African community, for example. And
same thing.
You may consider the statements that were made by the Minister for East African Cooperation, particularly from Uganda, when she had to cause the whole cancellation of the it was the recruitment process. Is it? Are we saying that ethnicity and the tribalism is becoming a problem even at that level?
Hers could not have been. I don't think it was tribal, because it was not as if it was a question of whoever was in the procurement was a Karamojong and me holding this office. So I think we're looking at
Uganda as now a tribe.
Well, it graduates to that level. For the simple reason, I told you, for example, that there's a discussion at this point where some East African MPs are saying, look, the distribution of these resources should also be reflected in how we contribute to the project. If you get more out of this project, put more on the table. If you have a bigger economy, put more on the table. And I'm thinking that that thinking was also part of what Madame was saying. The distribution of these resources should be better than what it is.
Yeah, because why it gets us concerns as Africans is that when you look at the, for example, when you go to the African Union, that when Dlamini, Madame Dlamini was the president, was the chairman, of...
Who's the Zulu, I imagine?
Yes. Then you saw many people from South Africa taking up executive positions at the African Union. And so does it mean then, therefore, that the issue, because if you looked at the European Union, it's a bit different compared, although we are built almost on the same structure, but you'll see that people who are getting jobs at the African Union, at the European Union, are people who merit. They could be coming from any part of Europe, but as long as they merit. But when we saw Zuma ascending to the helm of the African Union, we saw again...
Which was also contentious, if I may give you this information, by the way. You see, the structure of Organization of African Union, now African Union, was such that the big contributors, the powers, should not provide chairpersons.
Exactly.
If you look at the history of OAU, the smaller countries, quote-unquote smaller countries, are the ones that have always provided chairpersons to that body. Now, that was not just put in place for nothing. It was to check what you're actually complaining about. It was to check the excesses that would, and the baggage that would come with a chairperson from a stronger economy, a stronger contributing country. But also, if I may also give this information as my last point here, is that what happens, especially with the reference which you made to the East African community, the structure of East African community, and especially recruitment, as far as recruitment is concerned, is that Madame Kadaga was not wrong. No, she was right. How? She was right in the sense that the body, there is a structure governing recruitment and placement. And this body is like saying that it is now the rotation of Uganda to provide a speaker. And you say, no, we have got very good speakers in Rwanda, so we shall get one from Rwanda. What she actually said, her letter, I have a copy, I read it, and I remember you got an interview from NBS about the same. What she was reminding the Secretary General from Kenya, Dr. I forget the name, was simple, that go by the rules. We lost the East African community in the 10 years simply because of this nature of arrogance.
Yes.
Just play the ball. When we reach a point and we outgrow this level, then I may not have to remind you. But now as it is, the positions that you opened up and gave to other countries are positions that must be occupied by Uganda. Fair and square.
That is exactly where I was coming from.
Exactly.
In that, if the state delivers as it should, tribes will recede in importance. The reason why, as you said, if there are mechanisms, just like Madame Kadaga is exploiting, the mechanisms that are already provided for in the East African Treaty, it means that people can be called to order. And if that is respected, then the arrangement thrives. We have laws, we have policies, and so on and so forth. In fact, Uganda is reputed routinely for having some of the best anywhere. But the fact that they are not executed to the letter allows this. You see, nature cannot abhors a vacuum. Nature cannot contain a vacuum. So wherever the state fails, the tribe comes in. But if in the case of Tanzania, which was based on a socialist model, they tried very hard to make sure that the state was more fair in the way resources were distributed across Tanzania. It wasn't perfect.
Ujama project.
Yes, the Ujama projects. They entrenched a fair distribution, relatively fair distribution of resources across Tanzania. And in fact, that is why, to this date, he can correct me, land is primarily owned by the state of Tanzania, unlike in other places. So this impunity of grabbing and killing people because of land is at a minimum in that country.
In fact, yes, there was a discussion where I was saying that the government of Uganda is being accused of corruption, but the Americans are not, shouldn't be left free from that accusation, because as a result of propagating capitalism, that they comes with the need of accumulation of personal wealth to individuals. And Africans were not, that was not what we were known for. Africans had wealth, of course, but that wealth was more towards the communal than the person.
Just to tell you this, the most corrupt country in the world is actually America.
By far.
You cannot compete with her. You see, there is no way you can be a top-notch capitalist and you are not corrupt. Their corruption levels are out of this world. Once you are morally corrupt, you cannot avoid other forms of corruption.
Well,
and in fact, the reason why the argument of corruption is amplified in these our communities is because the resource base is narrow.
Yes.
The more the resources, the more the distribution element. Whereas they are very corrupt, the smallest man, on average, can afford a meal. So there is no reason to scrutinize how Mr. Obama is living in this. You have a meal. But here, because the resource base is narrower.
But also Americans who cannot afford a meal.
Yes, there are many.
But anyway, like I said,
I'm talking about on average.
The state will come in then, yeah.
On average,
it's the welfare state.
Yeah, yeah.
On average, there is a mechanism. But for us, because we don't have those mechanisms,
the
reason why tribe is supreme is because it answers.
Because that's what you say. It becomes very crucial. Because for me, if I don't have, I'm not going to have food at home today. Then I'm going to call my brother Rugarama. Say,
village mate. Very much so. Whereas in those states, you call the welfare officer, who is not related in any way. Not next of kin, welfare officer. And you see this society.
I know. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are continuing with the discussion on the issues of ethnicity in Africa, the pros and cons, the advantages, the disadvantages. Does it make us as Africans better to adhere to our ethnicity, to our tribes, to our clans? Does it make us look bad in the face of the rest of the world? And that is what we are looking at today. She's continuing with her discussion, but we are looking at this issue. Does it, Rachel? Does it look like when I am proud being who I am, being an African, being a Ugandan, being a Mugisu? Is that bad?
It is not bad, and that is why tribe has worked so well. It is a very good social construct. Like he said, it is how it is used. The colonial master used it to divide us, to dominate us, and to degrade what ethnicity is all about. If you're not white, everything concerning you is bad. But that is also not true. Because if it was true, African society would have long ago died. Because look, in terms of the human index or human, the indicators, they call them human development indicators, we are not anywhere concerning the societies that are high up there. But we still eat. We still drink. Despite very poor indicators on the white man's board. In other words, they talk about if you don't have so much housing, I'm talking about decent housing, you cannot be top on the Human Development Index. If you don't have the most vibrant health sector, you cannot make it to the top. But I have to say that in terms of human welfare, now we're talking about psychological, we're talking about social. There are few societies that are superior in terms of social welfare, as in human relations. I don't even think there is one.
Yeah, because then what comes
Africa is the topmost in terms of social relations, in terms of how we are constructed, care concerning the elderly, care concerning our neighbors. We are right up there.
Yeah, we are still, because I think one time we'll have this person to discuss with us when it comes to the social welfare of the Africans, because for us, you know, and that's why people do all they can to make sure that their children go to good schools, their children have a future, your children have at least where to start a life. Because you know, at the end of it, that's where you are falling back. Now, elsewhere, when children grow up and the parents grow up, the state takes over. You are talking about the state, but also there are some issues that when the state takes over, then it disorients the whole society. The state takes over, your father carries, children are fed up with the father, they carry him to the welfare officer, and the welfare officer will identify the home for the home for the where the elderly are going to die, and they will be dumped there. Now, that type of life, you see the state has taken over, but has broken down the social systems which will be binding, especially when it comes to the belonging, where people belong. And that's where Africa is super, like you are saying, because Africa is not looking at the monetary part of it, but that the social interaction in the family. The family finally becomes the biggest security for the person, especially in the time of need when you lose someone. You have gone to burials in the West, where you have to get an invitation. If I've lost my relative, I have to write my invitations to Rachel, to Rugarama, to come and attend the funeral service.
And strictly those ones.
Exactly. If you are not invited, you can just be, even if you are a neighbor, you don't go there. So some of these things, when you look at the African state and the types of states that because in Africa, we were not known for that type of state, but it was more of the communal that builds up to the state.
Actually, the point is the African society is a value-constructed society. Sure. Inherently, we are not a rights and responsibility society. You see, the rights are nothing but a subset of values.
Values, yes.
The moment you are a value-led society like the African society, which of course the spillovers of globalization are attacking, we are experiencing a downward trend in our values, increasing numbers of families who are empowering the children to talk about rights, not even responsibilities, just rights. It's rights, my right, it's my right, it's my right. The moment you are an African child, you know the value of respecting elders. You know the value of respecting a neighbor. That, therefore, leads you to know your responsibilities. And so trust society, the African society, knows how to reward back somebody who knows his responsibilities. Now, because of the interference, undue interference from the colonial master, the imperialist, we are having children who are going to remind you, you are not my mother, you are not my father, and therefore you cannot tell me what to do. That is not African. But what is important, if you permit me, I don't want this one to escape my mind. The ethnicity, the tribe on the African continent, and wherever you want it to be, has never been a problem. It is how that tribe, how that ethnic grouping has been used by whoever wants to use it, be it an imperialist, be it a politician, that becomes a problem. From time immemorial, the so-called Hutu and Tutsis were living happily in Rwanda, Burundi. The white man came and divided Rwanda, Burundi, created Burundi and Rwanda. Didn't stop there, emphasized that actually the Tutsis were a better breed and they cannot coexist with the Hutus, forget that they are the majority there, and therefore gave them superior feeling to the extent that when time reached, the other group that looked at themselves, the other ethnicity that looked at itself as being superior, could not put up with the other ethnicity that were being told that they were not as good as the other one, and you saw what happened in 1994. It's not, for instance, true that the Igbos cannot live with the Fulani. But the British man, when he entered Nigeria and created that geographical part called Nigeria, he made sure that the Igbos got better education and the resources went into the state of Igbo, and to the extent that even the educated ones, including the renowned writer Chinua Achebe, were supporting the creation of the Igbo state. Can you imagine?
Biafra.
The Biafra. Now, we all know what the Biafra state, the argument, the desire to have the Biafra state created. We know how many lives were lost just because of that. But go to Cameroon.
You know, okay, the same thing, again, most of these countries.
Go to Burundi here. We have had Burundi torn into parts and pieces simply because of ethnicity. We have had tribal,
even here, of Ethiopia.
Sudan. You see, the Sudan we are talking about, one, the argument was that, you see, these are Arabs, because Bashir considered and his group considered themselves to be more Arabs than
African.
They said, fine, let South Sudan be separate from Khartoum, Sudan. What happened? The Nuas and the Dinkas, after all, they are all cattle keepers, but they don't see eye to eye. Why? Because one of them, either a Dinka or a Nua, must occupy the state house. And the idiots are supporting each one of them, not because they love them so much, that me, I love Machar, he has better qualities, I love this senior brother who was the current president there, Salva Kiir. No, simply because he is a Dinka, the other one is a Nua, and therefore each of us must support our very own. They are tribesmen. So that creates a situation whereby the politicians I'm talking about are the ones that are now defining the concept of ethnicity and tribe. Tribe wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, because then that means, like we said, that when you lose the central system
for Vietnam,
yes, then you degenerate into the bottom.
You retreat to sanctuary,
yes,
which is tribe.
Exactly. But then the problem is that down there, you now become a tribesman. That first of all, you have to project and promote what is yours. That's why we have seen, and this came up, I think, when we were looking at the elections in Kenya, that the elections of Kenya were so tribalized that you have to belong to a particular tribe to be able to occupy a particular office. And it's not only Kenya. I think we have seen this happen in many parts of Africa, with the exception, like we said, now I've seen the progressives like Tanzania. But that does not mean that tribalism, I mean, a tribe is a problem, or an ethnic grouping is a problem. The problem is how we use these instruments, these groupings, either for the benefit of society, or we have also sometimes, like we saw in Rwanda, that given that background, people have been able to look at themselves as enemies, because either you come from a particular group, or you belong to a particular ethnic grouping.
But also, Mr. Mututa, one of the things that personally I'd like to underline, the issue of races, tribes, ethnicities is primarily a competition for resources. Where that competition is removed, sanity prevails.
So what do you say about the white supremacists?
It is the same thing. Those ones, and by the way, most white supremacists, at least in America, are the most impoverished whites. of course, there are some others in big offices who hide their ways finely.
And
but
fund
the most important propagators of these principles are the poorest, least educated white folks. That one is on record. I don't have to make that one up. And the reason why they do that is because you are a scapegoat because you're yellow. But the fact of the matter is, you occupy the place his grandfather used to sit in.
The Prime Minister of England.
And the reason his grandfather was there was not because he was white. It's because he was qualified to be there. Now, when you who are equally qualified are competing with the grandchild of the other person, race becomes an excuse.
Sure.
But it is really a preservation of a certain way of life, even without justification. That is why the Chinese, when they come, and the Indians, when they come, the Arabs before them, when they come, they dress this up as it is a facade. Race is an excuse to keep resources firmly in hand by degrading your neighbor. The competition comes to you're not able to get you off track so I can keep holding. That is why when the Indians, because Rishi is of Indian descent, and of course there is the Vice President of America who's of Indian descent. Her mother anyway.
She's called African.
Well, okay.
I don't know how
her father was from the Caribbean. Her mother was ethnic Indian.
Indian.
And then, of course, there is a main minister in Canada. I think he's the Governor General, something like that. But he's a major minister, and he's also of Indian descent. Actually, a Sikh. He's a Sikh. But those, you're able to rise through the system. And of course, there's Obama. The only reason why those people can rise through the system at this time is because there is better distribution of resources among the groups. And therefore, the white man does not see...
Or they have been able, they have made it, they have been, they have forced themselves to that area where fairly the distribution of resources can be accessed.
They may also not be considered threats.
Even before you come in. These people, those people who we see, the sprinklings of ethnic groups that now occupy high offices in Western lands, it's because this white man does not feel so threatened by you when there is an equalizer of education, there is an equalizer of money, there is an equalizer of influence. When those resources are spread, these threats diminish.
Yeah, because at the same time, they could also be reasoning that after all, if you became one of us, now you are joining the club. How many are you?
True. But what is true in America, and what is true in Canada, and what is true in Britain, if the resource distribution here improves, even the tribe's importance or hold on our minds, it will
because
diminish.
like they're saying, when a child cleans his hands, he can dine with the kings.
Very much so.
Your point, your last point as we close, Rugarama, because time is going.
Yes, so the truth of the matter, just maybe to buttress my sister Rachel's point, is that at the end of the day, we are actually debating resource allocation. I know, of course, that we have got, because even when you look at these xenophobic episodes in South Africa, it was about resources.
Exactly.
Now, it is a question, you can, of course, ask a question.
Tigray and the rest of Ethiopia,
as to how you think these other tribes considered their cousins from Zimbabwe, from Nigeria, as threats as far as resource allocation, jobs, and what have you is concerned. That's another debate. But to them, the kiosks, the hotel jobs, which these other tribes from Zimbabwe, Nigeria, and other countries were occupying, they should have occupied them. It is another whole huge debate as whether what they were thinking was right or not. Now, when you go to America, we can talk about the Ku Klux Klan. This predominantly so-called white
Ku Klux Klan,
Ku Klux Klan who thought that it was their duty to tell the entire world that they were superior, and these other ones, these other races, of inferior quality, they actually took it a top notch higher when they reached America. and they killed the indigenous,
Yes,
whom
yeah.
they referred
The
to
Indians.
as red
But the
Indians.
Berbers, the Arabs also finished off the Berbers.
Exactly. So it comes if when you look at the Arab world also, of course, they killed a good number of them. When you go to
Namibia and the San people.
The truth of the matter is that when you talk about race, especially, even tribes here, when you look at the tribal clashes, in majority of the cases we are talking about, even in politics by the way, we are talking about how close you are to resources.
Yes.
One tribe is trying to undercut the other for purposes of
Enriching.
claiming
Displacing
exclusive monopoly
the
over
idiots.
the resources and keeping it to themselves. So they qualify to be idiots, and they, at the same time they also fall into the category
tribesmen.
of tribesmen. So in a way of
Are those
concluding,
compliments?
yes, in a way of concluding, just statements of fact, whether so it is another thing also.
Without tagging your name.
Absolutely. So whoever falls there, these are really, I'm not pushing you there.
Dictionary
You are
definition?
simply there
As an
simply
idiot.
because
Simple.
of what you practice.
I like
So at the
that.
end of the day, when we look at the ethnicity, when we look at the tribe, when we look at the race, we can have intellectual debates over the same, but we cannot negate the fact that when we withdraw to our individual selves, we shall always have the feel that I am this tribe, I am this clan, I am this race. But when there is a higher good, to make you sacrifice the tribe for the higher good. For instance, if you are a big trader, like the president has already said, our own president, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, that I do not have to look at myself as a Munyankore because the Munyankore will not buy my milk. And me, I'm a milk producer. Now, I have got to associate myself and run away from the Munyankore tribe because the people who benefit me are actually Baganda and other tribes because I need them more.
Sure.
The Tigrinians in Ethiopia are now realizing that it is not enough to be a Tigray man or woman, but you must be within the bigger picture of the Ethiopia.
Rachel, your closing remarks.
Our closing remarks are in relation to exactly what tribe is and ethnicity is. And we realize that the common aspects of what makes up tribesmen or tribeswomen are really the strength of the ethnic bond. And it's on that very note that we say that elevating this to the Pan-African level, to the Ugandan level, the states, the nations must provide the same incentive to the rest of us. An incentive that is superior to the one provided by our ethnicities. In order for us to divorce ourselves from where we have been all this while, this is not just true in Uganda, it's true across the globe. Wherever a person or a being deprives benefit is where they lean toward. If we are to achieve the true nationhood or the African superstate, that very entity must have powerful incentives for us to rotate or evolve from where we are to where we need to be.
That's true.
It's true. And Africa must be seen for its preservance of its culture, the norming, because then that brings in the issue of who belong. When you say person dancing can tell, this one is dancing this type of dance coming from somewhere. Those shouldn't be the divisions, but should now help us, that diversity, to build a society which is more recognizant of its past, but also focused on the future, where all of us can access the resources we're talking about. And when the state comes in, we'll just build on that. No, the two discrepancies comes in when you have sometimes a super state, but when you look at its people, they have issues like we have seen in those countries where you think they're doing very well, but still have to feed the welfare society state Nduguru Garama was talking about. Thank you so much being with us. We have to come to the end of this episode today, but we'll still continue being with you. I think we'll appear again with you on Friday when we look at more crucial issues that concern the people who live in Africa and outside Africa, the people of Africa. Thank you so much being with us for the last 2 hours, and we don't take that for granted. Definitely appreciate being with us, and continue watching UBC. More programs are coming up, and being a Friday, we wish you to end well and enter a good weekend until we meet next week. Thank you so much. Have a good day.